Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from fabulous Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio that's all ages media programming television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Biggest and best I've ever had, probably be the same for you. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. All right, welcome in, everybody listening in on all of our radio affiliates, all of our television affiliates, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, also Hotel TV, Facebook on Chicago Food Favorites. Folks, make sure you check that out. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Lots of fun over there. And also everybody else live streaming on Pick Your Favorite platform or everywhere you can't get away from us. That's the good news. The winners and losers from the Chiefs and Ravens opening night from the National Football League may be the bad news. And honestly, there was a big delay at a time. I think there was a weather delay and a couple of other issues. And then the audience was serenaded with the Lift Every Voice and Sing. Now, according to Wikipedia, Lift Every Voice and Sing is a hymn with lyrics by James Weldon Johnson, 1871 to 1938, and set to music by his brother, J. Rosamond Johnson, 1873 to 1954, written from the context of African Americans in the late 19th century, and the hymn is a prayer of thanksgiving to God as well as prayer for faithfulness and freedom with imagery that evokes the biblical exodus from slavery to freedom of the promised land. So, I think that's a great thing. That's wonderful. In fact, we'll give it a round of applause. Now, what I found interesting is that this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, what I found interesting here is that the football game between the Chiefs and the Ravens opened up to a very big production of that. Now, I'm not so sure when it became compulsory for everybody to listen to Lift Every Voice and Sing before a sporting event, whereas prior to, the one and only song was the Star Spangled Banner. And so I don't understand how a song from, 100-odd years after the Star Spangled Banner became more important than the Star Spangled Banner in the first place. Look, folks, here's the worst part about it. I have no problem with Lift Every Voice and Sing. I think it's great. But here's the issue. Since when has this become more important than the national anthem? I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things you may want to ask the masses about instead of having the media and political agendas force-feed it down the audience's throat or into their brains and into their ears. This is ridiculous. And here's where it gets even worse. The Lift Every Voice and Sing is a very good song, and it has a lot of good meaning to it. And I think that's fine. But here's the issue. You play that song, and you have this enormous production, And then you wait, 10, 15 minutes, whatever the heck it is. Oh, and then the Star-Spangled Banner is played almost as if it's second fiddle. So whose agenda is it fulfilling, is what I would like to know. Is it the current administration? It sure seems that way. Is it from Barack Hussein Obama from 2008 to 2016, which in my opinion completely wrecked the nation? I don't know. Which one is it? Whose agenda is it? Because we certainly didn't have it in the last administration. I don't really know. But the problem is you're misleading the audience, whether they're on television, it's a television audience, whether it's people listening on radio, whether it's people at the game, at the event, whatever it is, whether it's a sporting event or a musical event, I don't know. But in this particular case, it was opening night in the National Football League. Again, folks, I have no problem with lift every voice and sing. I'm cool with that. And I think everybody's cool with that. But it's the order in which this was played, and it was the pub that it was given versus the freedom of our country, for Christ's sakes. I'm not really sure what message are we trying to send here. Are we trying to send a message that the Star-Spangled Banner doesn't have a whole lot of meaning? It's going to play second fiddle to another song? Is that the message being sent? Is it a message that we're slaves and we're going to get rid of ourselves from exile and all this other whatever? And listen, folks, in case you're wondering, African Americans were not the only slaves in this country. Well, let's go back and do a little bit of homework, a little bit of research, and you'll find that, yes, there were Chinese American slaves in the United States. There were Italian American slaves in the United States. There were Irish American slaves in these United States of America. It's not just one group. There are many, many groups. And so if you're going to say, well, we deserve this or we deserve that, I mean, you don't hear an Italian version of a song. You don't hear an Irish version of a song. You don't hear a Chinese version of a song or all the others. So why is it that we're playing Lift Every Voice and Sing before the national anthem in the first place, which represents everybody? And it was put together in 1773, 251 years ago. Come on, folks. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. Okay, so before you start singing the reparations song and slavery, this, that, and the other, whatever, think about all the groups that were slaves, all of them. And this covers throughout Asia and Europe and Africa. It's not just one group. One group doesn't deserve a song, because if one group deserves a song, every other group deserves a song. That's right. Now, you could be for or against this discussion. That's okay. That's not what this show is about. But this was the prelude to the first game that was played this season in the NFL, fulfilling somebody's agenda. I wonder if it's the advertisers. Maybe the advertisers had said, you know what? We're not going to pay you these jumbo contracts for advertising. And you know what? You're not going to be able to pay your players, because you've got to play this, or somebody told them you've got to play this. Otherwise, we're going to pull some contracts from you. That's what's going on in the major media in today's time, folks. That's what this is about. This is about agenda and nothing more than agenda. Now, is it a financial agenda? Probably. Is it a vote-gathering agenda? Probably. Is it a racial agenda? Probably not. Is it a white agenda? No. Is it a black agenda? No. Is it a brown agenda? No. Is it a yellow agenda? No. Is it a red agenda? No. Is it a blue agenda? No, but probably yes. Blue as in political. See, folks, you're supposed to keep politics away from sports. That's the idea of sports in the first place. A separation almost like of church and state, which, well, that's what we've always been told in history, in our history lessons, and pick your favorite school. Well, it seems that the separation of church and state only is a part-timer. kind of like the separation of sports and politics as a part-timer. If everybody would just leave sports alone, let them play sports. And you know when it got crazy like this, folks? It got crazy like this after the 1993 season with this collective bargaining, everything. Now all this big money starts coming in. When there was very little money in sports, you didn't have controversy and agenda like you do today. But because the players need to be paid more and more, we're going to get into that in the next segment, players have to be paid more and more and more. And so where's the money come from? The ownership only has so much money. And at some point, the players are going to want what? An ownership position in the teams. And how's that going to work? Hey, I'll tell you what, Ohtani gets $700 million, for example, in his contract. I mean, how much money does the owner have to just throw at this guy? For $70 million a year for this guy, $30 million here, $40 million here. They say, well, the owners are the bad people. Well, I don't think the owners are the bad people. I think the unions, the players' associations, and pick your favorite league with the exception of the National Hockey League, I think those are the bad people in these situations, because all they're doing is driving the price of admission up for everybody, and these players getting paid more and more, which I have no problem with to a degree. But at some point you say, who the hell's worth $55 million to play 17 games in a season? That's the NFL. That makes absolutely no sense to me and most people. And frankly, I don't care if you're Tom Brady in today's time. Look, is Tom going to make 50-odd million? Probably. But how is the money earned? How do you make $3 million a game? That doesn't make any sense. And they're pricing the fans and the viewers right out of the game. Back here in a few minutes on the circus, we're going to continue on this rant. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from fabulous Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by your friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events, and that's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. And welcome back to everybody, TV and radio, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in everybody else up and down the West Coast on all of our independents, as well as through the Midwest, all the way down to Texas, over to our friends over in Auburn, Alabama, WAUD 1230 on the AM dial, home of the Atlanta Braves. WDJY 99.1 FM over in Atlanta, and all of our others up and down the East Coast, all the way up through New York, Boston, all the way up to Maine. And thanks for joining us there. Also on television on all of our affiliates, as well as Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Make sure you check that one out, folks. All right, back here with the National Football League. I was talking about the first opening night between the Ravens and the Chiefs in Kansas City. And I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but, hey, listen, we're human. And so, anyway, continuing on where I was supposed to go, actually where I was planning on going, was from NFL.com. They said, well, there's winners and losers from this particular game, right? And so they say, that be NFL.com, there's always so much anticipation surrounding matchups between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. There's also usually an outcome that shouldn't surprise anyone at this point. And the Chiefs once again pulled out a victory in the 2024 kickoff game, this time by a score of 27-20. Now, that is 5 losses in 6 meetings for Baltimore in this series since Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson started squaring off against one another. Are they really squaring off against one another? Anyway, we'll get back to that. There will be a lot of talk about how thrilling the finish was in the game. And the final play of the game, of course, when Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely couldn't keep his feet in bounds. It was really probably his toenail. Anyway, that was in the end zone after jumping up to grab a Jackson pass. Of course, as usual, that was over the head of somebody. And, of course, that was exciting as it gets, according to NFL.com. Anyway, what shouldn't be forgotten is how Jackson twice missed open receivers on potential touchdown passes on the 2 previous plays. And, of course, it's moments like that that people say, you know what, this guy is really not that great of a quarterback. Some people happen to say, well, he is more of a running back that throws the ball than a quarterback. And actually, I would agree with that one. But the Ravens, of course, had allegedly the best team in the AFC last season, and Jackson won his second MVP, which I still don't understand, how a guy that cannot throw over the top of the receivers wins any kind of award like that. Also, they wound up losing, again, to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, in a game that was much about Baltimore melting down rather than how good Kansas City is. And it was really about Lamar Jackson, how he melted down in that AFC Championship game, throwing a temper tantrum like a little baby. It was ridiculous. He looked like a 10-year-old little boy that didn't get what he wanted after that AFC game, just seemingly crying like a little baby on the sidelines. Of course, that's my opinion. That's why I said seemingly. I can't say that because I wasn't there and I didn't see it firsthand. Anyway, I have to disclaim that. But anyway, that Thursday night game had potential to tell plenty of us more about what Baltimore can do. And the most obvious takeaway was that the Ravens still have a problem with blowing opportunities when the Chiefs are handing them the opportunity. And of course, that's the first lesson to be learned in the aftermath of this year's season opener. Of course, this edition of First Read by NFL.com will delve into deeper issues and the biggest winners and losers in the game. So here's, they say, is the rundown. And of course, Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice. If you're giving out an award for Kansas City's Offensive Player of the Game, the second-year wideout is a great place to start. In fact, he played with a level of physicality and confidence that reinforced what he displayed throughout training camp. It took Rice half a season to figure out how to play with Mahomes in the offense. A full season with the star quarterback now has given Rice an even greater sense of how to operate and how the Kansas City coaches can utilize him. And he was a monster on slants and deep crossing routes Thursday night and led them with 7 receptions for 103 yards. And there's been a lot of speculation on what the league and when the league will address Rice's off-season car racing crash in Dallas, as he is subject to the NFL's personal conduct policy. Of course, it seems to be a little favoritism there. Gee, I wonder why that is. How come there's been no suspension? Why is that? I don't know. I wonder if the musical powers that be and the political influence that the Chiefs have at this point are involved. Hey, here's the crazy thing about that. So you think about Kansas City, okay, they play in Missouri. The Kansas City Chiefs play in Missouri, which is a hyper conservative state. It's one of the most conservative states versus the liberal states. How in the world have the Kansas City Chiefs and their organization, in my opinion, become seemingly of the woke persuasion? Right? How does that happen? Well, people say, you go woke, you go broke. Well, take a look at the cities around the country, folks. All the major cities, for the most part, with the exception, I think, of Dallas, Texas, they are horrifically run. But that's a whole nother issue. But I think that maybe this suspension could have something to do with a little bit of favoritism. What do you think about that, folks? So I think favoritism plays in the hands of the Swifties that were in the crowd and everything else. And I don't know. Who the hell knows? It's just me rattling off a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But then again, back to this NFL.com article on winners and losers. Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy. He apparently is a winner. The Chiefs have been excited about Worthy's growth this season after using a first-round draft pick on him in April. In fact, he proved his debut as to why everybody is so high on this guy. Now, Worthy only touched the football a few times, but 2 of those plays turned into touchdowns, 21-yard run and a 35-yard catch, even though the touchdown grab happened after a breakdown in coverage by the Ravens. You could see that there's a little bit of speed there. Man, this guy can move. When you look at the speed, the team speed of the Kansas City Chiefs, the only team that has the speed of the Kansas City Chiefs, as I see it right now, is the Miami Dolphins. They're absolutely loaded with speed. And at that team, it would be fast against faster if both of those clubs were playing. But anyway, when you take a look at this kid out of college, out of Texas, when he came to Kansas City Chiefs, this kid is very, very fast. Another good player from Fresno, California, by the way. Loyal listener Larry would like that one. But anyway, Xavier Worthy is one of those guys that, man, he can just flat out move. So you see, maybe losing Tyreek Hill wasn't the worst thing in the world for the Kansas City Chiefs because they already had speed on their mind anyway with Worthy and, of course, with Rashee Rice. I think that's really what it was. And they had a big contract coming up. They're like, you know what? We're going to let this guy go because we don't want to pay him all that money. We can't because we've got other people we got to pay too. Nonetheless, back to Worthy. I mean, look, there's no doubt that Worthy will go through his growing pains, but even as a rookie, as a wideout, look, everybody goes through this, even in Reid's system. So what isn't in the question is whether he'll produce his fair share of jaw-dropping plays in his first season. This guy is good. Anyway, another winner is the Chiefs' defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. The Chiefs' widely defensive coordinator, and I'll say wily and widely because it's a very stout defense from time to time. This guy is a big winner in this one because he absolutely confused Lamar Jackson. But then again, I don't really think, in my opinion, that's very hard to do, if you know what I mean. Anyway, in last year's AFC Championship game, Steve's defense was once again a mystery bag. And it, just like it was in this opening night. And yes, the Ravens produced some impressive numbers overall, including 452 total yards and 185 on the ground. Of course, most of that was by Lamar Jackson. And the problem was that Jackson seemed lost for long portions of the game. And Derrick Henry completely disappeared from the game. You know, if you watched when Henry got in the game in the first half, every time he was on the field, you knew he was going to get the ball. Everybody in the building knew he was going to get the ball. That's exactly what happened. But as much of the Ravens rallied in the final quarters to create an opportunity, it's like, where the hell was Derrick Henry? He wasn't even on the field. It's amazing. How do you go and pick up this enormous acquisition of arguably the best back in the game and you don't use him? You just abandon him, and then you go to Lamar Jackson. Let's get this guy in the line of fire, right? Let's run Lamar Jackson, and let's see if we can get him injured. This seems to be what's happening with the Baltimore Ravens. Let's just go ahead and abandon our game plan once we fall behind, when our defense fails us. All right, back here with a little bit more of this and more of the NFL. And last segment, we're going to jump into baseball. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Sports Circus. I'm the Ringmaster Sal, live from fabulous Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio. That's all ages media programming television. This segment brought to you in part by the Sports Circus. Make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, or recorded shows, which are our podcast. No, we don't do a podcast, but we just happen to have all of our fully recorded shows on air, of course, on those podcasts. Whether it is Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, you name it, we're there. You can't get away from us. Also, folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com's upcoming schedule. Lots of great guests coming up, as well as our partners. Make sure you pop on over to the partners page and see who does business with us, who you'd like to maybe check out, investigate. It could be the College of Southern Nevada. It could be Al's number one Italian beef at 1079 West Taylor Street. It could be, I don't know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. writing a book. Who the heck knows? All I know is we have lots of good partners. And, you know, we've been around for a lot of years, and it's a lot of fun. We get to talk about things that we want. And also, our friends, our listeners, they like to do the same thing. And what do they like to do? They like to give suggestions of whatever it is that we cover. And so sometimes you'll hear us go off on a rant or a rave or something like that. Well, it's because in many cases, we get requests to do so. In fact, you too can make a request at 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935. Call in, make a request, participate in the show. Just remember, you got to watch your language. And maybe there's a topic that you want to cover or you want us to cover. And I'm okay with that. We're okay with that. Just keep it clean and let's have some fun. All right, back to this NFL opening night winners and losers by the NFL.com website. So we talked about the defensive schemes and this and that. How about Chris Jones? How about defensive tackle Chris Jones from the Chiefs? Well, look, it's amazing to think that this Chiefs all-pro defensive tackle only finished with 3 tackles and a sack. But he seemed to be living in the Ravens' backfield. That's just what it was. I don't know. Some guys are just shot out of a cannon. They seem to pick things up when others don't. This guy just, man, he was dialed in. Absolutely dialed in. And look, Baltimore had no viable plan to get rid of this guy either. He's just big. He's fast. And let's face it, Jones forced a fumble from Jackson in the second quarter. Of course, that the Chiefs' defensive back had ultimately recovered. And Jones also hurried Jackson on several other dropbacks and played a key role in slowing Henry in the run game. I love this when they say hurried the quarterback. Now, this all started this. You remember seeing these stats when it comes to knockdown, hurries, and all this other stuff. And this happened in 1985 with the Chicago Bears. And John Madden was calling the Bears Monday night games or the Sunday games with Pat Summerall. And what it was that the Bears defense, that 46 defense, which was named after Doug Plank, by the way, always big props to Doug Plank, number 46, Buddy Ryan named that defense after him. And what it was basically an all-out jailbreak. We're going to send everybody. We're going to drop one guy back. We're going to send 10 guys. Now, you don't have but 5 guys on the line and a quarterback. Maybe somebody out of the backfield. Well, guess what? That still leaves a couple, 3 guys. And so ultimately what happens? Chaos happens. But when they say knockdowns, hurries, and all that, those stats started back in 1985, that 85 season when the Bears won the Super Bowl in January of 1986, and they destroyed the New England Patriots. Of course, that's always a round of applause. But think about that. So whenever you see these knockdowns, hurries, and that's why NFL.com had mentioned that, well, there were hurries, right? And so it says Jones also hurried Jackson on several other dropbacks. That's what that's all about. Anyway, at this time last year, though, Jones was sitting on the Chiefs' season opener, and he wasn't really playing. I mean, it just, wow. He was kind of waiting for a new contract. And, you know, when players hold teams hostage, I don't know, it drives me crazy. So he signed a massive extension, all right? So that's what the news was at the time. And when we think about these massive extensions, this particular one, Chris Jones actually agreed to a 5-year, $158.75 million deal. This guy got $101 million in guarantees. Now, when you say some of these contracts and whatnot are a little bit slanted, just a little bit, or they're a little bit ridiculous, let's talk about ridiculous. So this particular one was from, we'll say about 6 months ago. This is what the deal was. So Jones and the Chiefs agreed on terms to this 5-year, $158 and change with $101 million in guarantees. And, of course, NFL Network, that they allegedly broke the story, whatever. Then they say Jones, who in the eyes of some had surpassed Aaron Donald. Well, Aaron Donald was a really, really effective defensive player, a great defensive tackle. But, come on, he wasn't like the best in history. Anyway, and they say, well, he was the league's top interior defensive lineman. Well, so be it. Jones's deal makes him the NFL's highest paid defensive tackle at $31.75 million a year? Yeah, that's right. And that was higher than, of course, Aaron Donald's $31.6. And this is crazy. So it's like, well, this guy got 1, so I'm going to get 2. He got 2, well, I'm going to get 3. And this is what the problem is with this league. This guy, mind you, 29 years of age. At 30, the wheels start to come off of players in pick your favorite sport. For whatever reason, it seems like they turn 30, all kinds of crazy stuff goes wrong. And you ask yourself, how long can he sustain that productivity? So yeah, he got that massive extension in the offseason. Okay, and that's great. But is anybody worth $30-odd million a year? That's kind of what I'm wondering here. And I mean, Magic 8 Ball, in my opinion, says absolutely not. So anyway, when you think of all this money that's being spent, and you shake your head, say, well, okay, were the Kansas City Chiefs the big winner in that negotiation? I'm not so sure. Because remember, Tyreek Hill went over to Miami, made Miami significantly better with his ridiculous contract. These guys have just crazy contracts. And yes, they did replace Tyreek Hill with 2 speed demons, as you see and as you saw in the game against the Ravens. Rashee Rice is lightning in a bottle. And obviously Worthy, too, has a ton of speed, which is, the pick for this year's draft. So who else was a winner in this one? I would say Isaiah Likely from the Ravens. I mean, who started him on their fantasy football team? I'm sitting there watching a game with 6 guys from another fantasy football league, and one of the guys in there actually had Isaiah Likely on his fantasy football team, but he had him sitting on the bench, like most people. Nobody would have thought. Everybody would have thought Andrews would be getting the ball. I had actually Andrews on my fantasy football team, and he got 1 touch, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he got 2 touches. That's it, for a grand total of less than 10 yards. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it was Isaiah Likely. Yes, he had 9 catches and 111 yards and a touchdowns. That's right. He had a touchdown along with it. Look, that score was a 49-yard catch and run after Jackson, as usual, running away from his protection in the pocket, running, scrambling, somehow finds somebody to throw the ball to. I tell you what, Jackson is a complete mess. And by the way, the Ravens clearly want to get the ball in the hands of Henry and Zay Flowers, but it just seems like Jackson had other aspirations. And I wonder what those were. I wonder if a little bit of... I wonder if that was involved, because when guys were wide open, Jackson seemed to be not seeing them. I wonder what that's all about, because, these games, in my opinion, are largely fixed. And as I said in previous shows, we've had guys from the National Football League that have been retired. They retired, and what do? They went to go work for the powers that be that do what? Fix football games. And we even had that statement on air on this show that the games were fixed by a former NFL great. That's right. That's right. You heard it right. Because it was all about... Show me the money! Yeah. And so the losers, according to NFL.com, was the Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. You can't argue with Jackson's overall numbers as he threw for 273, ran for another 122. The problem was how poorly Jackson performed when the game was on the line. Again, the first pass he missed to Likely on that final drive was an egregious, see if I can say that right, egregious. That's right. It's egregious. Because the tight end had a step on Brian Cook, the chief safety, way back in the end zone. However, somehow Jackson threw the ball that soared over a 6'4" receiver and led Likely to getting banged up after landing awkwardly. That's right. Hanging your receivers out to dry is what Lamar Jackson is an expert at, as I see it. And then, this is the same guy that doesn't know how to throw over the top of the defenders. Mind you, when you got a 6'4" receiver and you can't throw over the top of a 5'11" corner, there seems to be a problem there. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Don't go anywhere.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from fabulous Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, again, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, and all of those podcast platformed recorded shows on Pick Your Favorite Organization, your favorite platform. Also, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. That's Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And tell them the circus sent you. All right, back here with the NFL. You get the point with that winners and losers from opening night thing, from the music all the way to the game and post-game and whatnot. I mean, look, it was an entertaining game, and the game ended literally with a toe out of bounds. And so it's almost as if the script was written in a very particular way, and it was followed very, very closely to what they could actually control on the field. Nonetheless, back to the other parts of the NFL, the other games, and of course the Bengals. Jamar Chase considers himself a game-time decision versus New England, which basically means, as I see it, he's going to play. Why wouldn't he play in the season opener? That doesn't make a lot of sense when you definitely want to make sure that you get off to a good start. And then, let's face it, you're playing against New England, and New England has beaten the AFC East like a drum for the last 15 years. We'll call it last 20 years as a whole. Obviously, since Tom has been gone, it hasn't been that way. But still, this is Miami's time now. Miami is the best team at this point in the AFC East. And of course, what did they do? They went and signed Jalen Ramsey to a record 3-year extension. Now, again, I talked about this extension stuff and whatever in the last segment, and I scratch my head and say, okay, we have more money going, which is, look, I get it, but I have such a hard time with the idea of a corner making over $24 million a season. Now, let's put this into perspective, folks. The reason this is an issue is because you think of the pre-93 collective bargaining guys, the guys who made the game great. And let's go back to the Retired Players Congress. Rest in peace, my very dear friend Bob Grant. Of course, Bob always gets a round of applause. A very frequent visitor to the Sports Circus. Great stories from the National Football League. Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Colts, by the way. And a very, very instrumental piece in breaking down racial barriers in football. That's right. Look him up. Bob Grant. What a very, very, very important human to a lot of people, a wonderful man, and also a very important part of breaking those barriers down in the National Football League and the NCAA. But anyway, we think of these games and we ask ourselves, if it wasn't for those guys that played back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, if it wasn't for those guys, what would we be looking at as far as these salaries go. Remember, those guys didn't make but $8,000 to $10,000 a year. A year. Not $50 million a year, this kind of thing. Well, if it wasn't for the guys that made the game great in the first place, we wouldn't have these ridiculous, outlandish contracts that seemingly make no sense when the average American makes about $40,000 a year in the first place. But the players just keep saying, show me the money! Yeah, show me more money. Give me more. Give me. In fact, I saw a horrible video on Major League Baseball Network, and it was embarrassing. It was a terrible video, and it was with some of the personalities on that particular television channel. And it had a bunch of particular players from this group or that group saying, give me the money, give me the money. And that's all it was. It was a whole video of give me the money, give me my money. And it was such the wrong message to the audience because it just creates angst in the audience. Remember, the audience, the average typical audience member is making maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year, not $40,000, $50,000 a minute. And so you ask yourself, how does it make the audience feel? And you've got this guy or that guy, 12 million here, 15 million here, 50 million here, 30 million here. And look, I have no problem with players getting paid. These numbers are ridiculous. And again, when I had said previously that they're pricing the fans out of the game, they are. To go to an average football game now, and we talk about this frequently, just to go to an average football game for a family of four, it's a couple $1,000s. That's right. Parking's a couple $100, depends on where. Let's just say in Los Angeles. Right, not everybody's in LA listening, but it doesn't matter. You're going to pay at least $100 for parking, $50 to $100, up to $200 for parking. The tickets are going to be typically for decent seats. You're going to pay about $250 to $400 a piece. Oh, then guess what? You're going to get hungry, and then you're going to get thirsty, and maybe you want a souvenir. By the time it's all said and done, you're a couple $1,000s out. Now, the average person is making $40,000 to $50,000 a year. So the question is, do you go on vacation and spend that couple $1,000, just go somewhere for a handful of days, whatever, or do you spend a few hours inside of a stadium paying these people when you can actually watch them on television or on streaming for free? Well, what does that mean? Me personally, I'd rather go on vacation somewhere. That just makes a whole hell of a lot more sense. But then again, that's just one guy's opinion, but I think I share the opinion of many as well. Think about that one. Now, whether the NFL plays in Brazil or they play in Kansas City or they play in Timbuktu or Timbuktu, same thing. TV advertisers, money, and, well, you know what? Sometimes the players are going to make a decision. I don't feel like playing this week. Maybe our opponent isn't, I don't know. They're not going to put a big challenge. So maybe Jamar Chase says, I want to consider myself a game time decision, see if I feel like playing. And I don't know, maybe I'll get an extra day of rest and I'll make whatever, that salary divided by 17, I don't know how much he makes, whatever, some crazy amount of money, basically get that into his pocket anyway for not even playing the damn game in the first place. Now, I've got Jamar Chase on my fantasy football team, so I need that guy in there. He's my key receiver, and I've got Joe Burrow as my quarterback, so come on, man. Jamar, you need to get in there. That's how I see it, but then again, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Let's go to the Major League Baseball Rookie of the Year chase. This is kind of an interesting race because for a long time over in the National League, it was Paul Skeens leading the way. Now, mind you, Paul Skeens, this guy is legit. Man, this guy is good. If you don't know who Paul Skeens is, you better go ask somebody, or you better turn on the television and you better watch what this guy can do because, man, he is legit. 9-2 with a 2.13 ERA and a walks and hits per innings pitch of under 1. I mean, these are Cy Young numbers here. In 11 decisions, this guy's got 142 strikeouts. 142 in 11 decisions. Strikeouts per 9 innings, 11.2. Strikeouts to walk ratio, 4.73. That's crazy. Batting average allowed, 201. That's insane. This guy also has fielding percentage, 952. These are Hall of Fame numbers for a rookie, by the way, that did what? He started the All-Star game for the National League. Now, look, Jackson Merrill is a very good player. He is a minus 1408 as far as the odds go to Paul Skeens plus 850, which I have such a hard time understanding this one. Because Jackson Merrill has been a timely hitter, but I think the numbers are a little bit skewed here. When you look at Jackson Merrill's stats, you say, yeah, these are pretty good stats. They really are. This kid, 6'3", 195 pounds. I mean, look, he's good. Out of 490 at-bats, he's got 143 hits, really good. 22 home runs, good. Batting average, 292, very good. 70 runs scored, 82 RBIs, 16 stolen bases. And look, his slugging percentage, 498. OPS, 821. The guy's good. He's good. He gets timely hits. But when you compare him to the complete domination of Paul Skeens, I mean, it is an apple and a watermelon. Skeens being the watermelon. It's not even an apple and an orange. I mean, Skeens is really that much better. And again, two guys that are very good at the game. Of course, I have Jackson Merrill on my fantasy baseball team, like a lot of other people. But Paul Skeens is really ahead of his time. This is a guy that could have thrown back in the 1960s with Bob Gibson and even thrown, right, of course, in today's time. Paul Skeens should be, without question, the Rookie of the Year. Jackson Merrill with an honorable mention as I see it, but again, my opinion doesn't matter. Now, Jackson Chourio is a distant third at plus 1,500. Jackson Chourio is another very good player for the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, the guy gets hit in the hand, hit here, hit there, whatever, and he's still doing it. Jackson Chourio is a very, very good player. And when you ask yourself, well, who the hell is Jackson Chourio? I mean, and why should we be rooting for this kid? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you don't know anything about baseball, that's okay. But Jackson Chourio, again, is one of those players that you really should pay attention to. And look, his wins above replacement is 3.7. That's pretty damn good. When you look at Jackson Merrill, who is allegedly the leader, his wins above replacement are 3.6. Now imagine that. Now, if you want to take that just a little bit further and you say, well, wait a minute. Remember, you talked about that pitcher. His wins above replacement are what? 5.1. And the wins above replacement is basically everything. That's really what you look at. So it's a single number that presents a number of wins the players added to the team above what a replacement player, think AAA or something like that, would actually add. So Paul Skeens is head and shoulders above these guys. But Jackson Chourio, a very good player, 444 at-bats, 50 less than Jackson Merrill, 124 hits, but then again, he's got another 50 at-bats less. 19 home runs to Jackson Merrill's 22. Batting average 279 to Merrill's 292. 69 runs scored to Merrill's 70. 69 RBIs to Merrill's 82. Stolen bases, 20 to Merrill's 17 or 16 or whatever the heck it is. His slugging percentage and OPS, they're almost the same. So Jackson Chourio, if he had his 50 extra at-bats, thereabouts, that Jackson Merrill had, Jackson Chourio would be right up there with him. But neither of those guys have the same wins above replacement that Paul Skeens has. And that's real simple, folks. There's not a lot of arguing in this one. And when you look at the American League, so it should be Skeens. In the American League, Colton Cowser is just ahead of Austin Wells. Colton Cowser, the right fielder from the Orioles, is a minus 300. Austin Wells is a plus 210. Then there's a big drop-off to Abreu with the Red Sox, the right fielder, at 2,500. So it's a two-horse race, but really I think Colton Cowser really has this one wrapped up at this point. But there are a couple of guys that are not given the consideration. And I think there's a guy over with the Oakland A's that should have a little something to say about that, but he's not getting any consideration as well. Anyway, that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you next time right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.